or HPB file 7432, which is the proposed North Shore Historic District. This is a preliminary evaluation, which you've all received in your package, and HPB file 7433. This is the presentation of the preliminary evaluation for the Normandy Isles Historic District. I wanted to give you an update because there have been several occurrences, several public meetings that have happened regarding both of these applications. As you will recall, it was March 11th, 2014, when this board directed staff to begin the preliminary evaluation process. We had done that, and at the June meeting, this request was continued by the board until September. Between the June meeting and now, we have the city's planning department has performed 2 public workshops. It was an informational. We actually mail noticed individually every single property owner in the entire boundaries of both districts. We had a very good turnout. One meeting was held on July 22nd, and the other was on August 12th. Each of those meetings had over 50 residents, attorneys, developers who attended. They asked a lot of good questions, and we think that they were actually very successful. At the same time, the planning department was continuing an actual field survey, which I am very happy to announce we have recently completed. So all of the buildings within the National Register District boundaries have been photographed, and we are working on cataloging those buildings and analyzing them right now. Since the public workshops, on August 21st, the Mayor's Blue Ribbon Panel on North Beach had a meeting. At that meeting, they did approve a motion, and I'm going to read the motion. The Mayor's Blue Ribbon Panel on North Beach approved a motion requesting the Historic Preservation Board withdraw consideration for historic designation for both North Shore and Normandy Isles districts at this time, but to revisit the issue in 1 year to give the city time to prepare a master plan for North Beach with a strong consideration of a vision for historic preservation. At the same meeting, the panel approved a motion to encourage the city's planning department to continue the ongoing cataloging of historic properties in the proposed Normandy Isles and North Shore historic districts to be completed before February of 2015, and to continue a process of active engagement and education with the public. After that meeting, the Land Use Development Committee decided to discuss this at the September 3rd meeting. They had a good discussion. They heard public comment, and at that meeting, they expressed a desire to delay action by this board. I believe they thought that 6 months would be an appropriate time in order to give the planning department time to analyze the data that we've collected from our field survey and look at possible refinement of the proposed boundaries. The boundaries that we have been directed to analyze are the entire National Register districts, which we have been doing. And since we completed our field survey, the planning department has been looking at this very closely. Another thing that the Land Use and Development Committee suggested is that any potential local historic overlay in this area also include certain zoning overlays, which we have done in the past. The North Beach Resort District, this board also, along with the designation, adopted a series of companion design guidelines that were formulated specific to the unique characteristics of that district. We do have some unique characteristics in North Beach as well. And what the planning department has done is on those maps that you see in front of you, we've identified areas that we believe are a priority for local district overlay. Those areas, very preliminarily in our research, we believe have the highest concentration of the most highly significant architecture. We have looked at the entire Harding Avenue corridor, which we believe as the gateway to Miami Beach is highly significant. It's very much intact. And the area to the south of that which would complete basically the original plat of the Harding Town site. We think would be a logical extension. We've also looked at Normandy Isle, and Bay Drive has a really spectacular collection of MIMO mid-century buildings. That would be our number one priority at this point. Again, it's very preliminarily on Normandy Isle. And then Marseille also has a very strong, cohesive collection. Now, we're presenting this to you not to tell you this is what it's going to be or this is our final map. But we want to get the direction from this board. Staff needs the direction if this is something that you would like us to continue to pursue, or if you have other ideas.
I'd like to just kind of start the conversation by first thanking those committees and boards for their suggestions, though highly not typical to try to circumvent our process, before we even get to a decision as a board. I find that a little inappropriate, but nevertheless, I appreciate their suggestions as committees and as boards. Yes, go ahead.
I was not able to attend the workshops, and I know that Daniel was on the panel, and so was Carol Housen, who obviously have their bona fides up in North Beach. No? Can the just for the viewing public, can you mention who was on the Blue Ribbon panel?
Sure. Debbie? Daniel?
Daniel Vieta is a member of the Mayor's Blue Ribbon panel. Daniel, can you help me out on the other names?
Good morning. Daniel Vaitia, 1193 71st Street. I sit on the Blue Ribbon panel. It's composed of 3 members of the community, myself being one of them, Marguerite Ramos being another, and Ricky Areola, who is our chairperson. It's only a 3-person panel, so it's very difficult to get motions passed and approved because you really need a unanimous approval to get certain things done today. But I will be speaking today on behalf of myself and not the Blue Ribbon panel.
Thank you. Again, just for the record, certainly very well appreciated that you've taken the time and consideration and all of that. But I mean, this board has very successfully considered multiple districts and approved 12 districts very successfully, and I just respectfully ask that we go through the process as the law would indicate and let us do our job as a board and then decide. And just as for the timing, as everybody here very well knows, our intention was always to have at least 6 months review, but we could only do that in 120-day increments, which brings us to today. So let's take it from there. Do we have anyone presenting, or this is it?
That's
Okay.
That's the update. I mean, if you go through the document, the preliminary evaluations, staff has found that yes, these areas in totality do satisfy the criteria to be local historic districts.
Do you feel that granting another 90 days or another 120 days would give the city staff and certainly the community more of an opportunity to further consider and further understand the benefits or the negatives of a locally designated historic district?
Yes, and that is what staff is recommending, that this application be continued to December, which would fall within that 120 days. And the reason why is because staff would like to explore the adoption of companion zoning guidelines, possibly zoning changes, possibly companion design guidelines. We also feel strongly about refining the boundaries. So that is the direction that we're seeking from this board. If that's a good direction, or if we should look at other areas.
Okay. Well, before we continue the discussion, I'd like to recognize the godfather of Miami Beach's historic districts, William Carey. We missed you. We're glad you're back. Discussions? Questions? Comments? Joe?
Okay, I'll start it off. I'm never one to hold things in. I cannot tell you how much I resent 3 people in North Beach telling us what to do, especially when I've heard from so many residents of North Beach that they think this is a wonderful idea, the historic district. I don't like political involvement in our decisions. I think they're antithetical to the purpose of this board, and I just want to go on record as saying this is just not on.
Thank you, Joe. Gwen, anybody else? Jane?
It reminds me of the old days when everybody, when some people went to meetings, some people didn't. My point is, I don't really care how it happens, as long as we move it ahead and do what's best for the entire city. And, it'll eventually work itself out in the wash. I think people will begin to see. A lot of people got rich on a lot of really bad properties in South Beach. So I think education is the most important.
Yeah, I think, again, just to reiterate, I think that there's two things that are very important here, is to allow the process to continue as it is supposed to in this city, and certainly community and citizens' involvement and understanding. I've heard, I'm going to get a T-shirt that says, North Beach is not South Beach. Guess what? It's one city. And the challenges that are in North Beach, for those of you that weren't around, as I was and many others here, are really almost the same as they are in South Beach. They're really not that different. But the opportunities are also not that different. So I just would urge that we, as a city, you don't need to fix it because it's not broken. Let the process move forward, and let's see where we take this.
Let me just add that I think I initially proposed that we consider this this great move for North Beach. I live on North Beach. I live on Bay Drive, and I walk past those beautiful buildings every day. And it would be negligent of this board not to ask this process to continue. I don't think it has to be done yesterday, but I think it certainly has to be done. And there are people who don't think that they're going to make as much money, but that's something that has existed for a long time in this city, very, very long time. That same thing existed in South Beach, and we see what South Beach has become. So I see no place but up for North Beach to be designated. It's on the National Historic Register. The buildings are clearly worthy and contributing, and I think we should proceed to complete the task that we are chartered to do.
Thank you, David. Any other comments, questions, motion?
I was going to make a motion to continue until the December, 9th? Yeah, December 9th agenda.
I'll second.
And I commend the staff for their thorough report up to this date.
I would suggest that you include in that
Or do 120?
some community workshops and possible consideration of staff's direction.
Oh, right, they wanted some, right, they wanted
It's not
direction
exactly
on
where we
right,
were
on
120 days ago.
continuing, right.
If I could just talk about the process,
Yeah.
this is a complicated process. This is the presentation of a preliminary evaluation. That, if the board chooses to continue, will be heard again in December. Once the board acts on the preliminary evaluation, the motion is to direct staff to begin to prepare the formal designation report. In between there, once the board directs us to prepare the formal designation report, city staff has up to, according to the code, up to 1 year to prepare that report. Hopefully, it will be a lot sooner than that. And then the city commission is notified, where then they can put it on as a discussion item and alter the boundaries or deny the request. So staff is looking for some direction as to, shall we continue to prepare this document for the entire boundaries? Do you want us to look at the areas that we've selected in terms of a priority?
Okay.
So if that could be part of your motion, that would be
I would
helpful.
say think about it, consider the motion, but let's open it up to the public. and then we'll take it from
Before
there.
we do that, would that include the International Inn on,
No, the International Inn is not within the boundaries of the National Register Historic Districts.
is there a way to designate that building?
Individual.
There is a process where this board by motion can request that staff begin the process for that individual
With
structure.
an individual.
I want to include that.
Okay. Let's open this up to the public. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Kirk Pascal. I own a 1948 apartment building on Crespi Boulevard on the Waterway in the National Register District in the North Shore. I've attended all of the public workshops. I know many of the residents, many residents are very passionate about this. It's very hard for residents to come to these meetings. I've been to these meetings, I've been to the workshops, I've been to land use. I've been killing myself to support the interests of residents, but it's just very hard for residents to come out. I want to go on record by saying that the Blue Ribbon, which I've also, every 2 weeks they've been meeting, and prior to that every week, and I've missed a handful of them, maybe 3. This agenda item was not noticed to any citizens. I did not know until I was sitting there that it was part of the discussion. In addition to that, the public did not have an opportunity to speak on this item, which very much undermines the process of what the Blue Ribbon is supposed to be about, and concerns me very much. Also, Debbie, I wanted to ask if you could check, because I was also at the land use meeting last week. I spoke. And my understanding was that you had said you needed 3 months and not 6 months. And my concern is, having been a resident for 14 years, we want North Beach to move forward. North Beach deserves to move forward. All of my tenants had a potential tenant that came down from Palm Beach last week. He's in love with the area. He wasn't even aware of it. North Beach deserves this. It concerns me that our so-called leaders of our community, the minute this came up, have all stepped up in opposition to it. Yet they haven't come up with an alternate plan of how they plan on moving North Beach forward. They just want to leave it vulnerable, in my opinion, same way as it's been for decades. Developers have had decades to rip down our buildings. Aside from that, I do want to point out, based on these new diagrams that Debbie provided, from my experience being a resident, it is the waterfront properties that are currently most at risk and the ones that I think we should worry about going down most quickly. Also, an obvious omission with Francisca's here, who leads the MIMO tours every month. There's also the block between 75th and 76th, Abbott to Byram, which my understanding was built by the government during World War II. It's a very cohesive block, and I think that's very important as well. So thank you very much. Thanks for all you're doing, and thank you for standing up for the residents. We need that because we don't feel like anyone else is really doing that at this point. So thank you.
Just for clarification, what I believe we're going to be considering today is an additional 120 days, not another 6 months. It was 6 months total.
Correct. We are recommending this be continued for 3 months, which would put it to December 9th. And at that time, we will give another presentation, and it would be up to the board whether they want to move forward with the formal designation report or if they want to continue it again. But we're requesting
Again,
3 months only.
6 months was always what this board had considered from the get-go. We just, the
Okay. I should also
guidelines
point
didn't
out,
allow that.
the bureaucratic circumvention, as frustrating as it is to you, it's about 100 times more frustrating for residents. So again, thanks for standing up for us.
Thank you. Other public comment?
Can I say something? I want to commend Mr. Pascal. I've seen him at so many meetings, and
Absolutely.
he's a really good spokesman for this, and he's saying what needs to be said. And I did attend one of the Blue Ribbon panel meetings, just one, but I think that he's right in saying that the residents can't come because they're all working or otherwise engaged. But this is so important, and every one of us has an obligation to the residents over those with political agendas in the city.
Thank you, Joe. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Francisca Medina, and I'm also a local resident of the North Beach Historic District. And as a resident, one of the big attractions and quality of lives living there is the architecture. And we talked about being one city, and I want to quote Denise Scott Brown and Robert Venturi, architectural critics who were brought down to Miami Beach by Morris Lapidus, MIMO architect, and he said about the Art Deco district that it represents like no other the history of development of early design of the 20th century in the United States. And following that thought, the North Beach Historic District and the Normandy Isle districts with its buildings from the 40s and 50s are part of that. And it's a continuum when you think of even the modern buildings today by, by Richard Meyer, by Herzog and de Meuron. And therefore, I think, especially with the centennial coming up in Miami Beach, it would be very benefiting for the North Beach Historic District and the Normandy Isle to pursue that.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
I'm sure I speak on behalf of this whole board. Thank you for all the amazing work that you do, because you're one of the best ambassadors that the city has for promoting all of our history and our architecture.
Thank you.
Other public comment? Good morning.
Good morning, board members. Daniel Seraldo here on behalf of the Miami Design Preservation League. We made a motion a few months ago that we believe that the National Register boundaries are what should be considered for the local district. So I just want to thank all of the members of the community that are really spearheading this. It really came out of the community. But I would make a suggestion that instead of making a motion to specific boundaries, maybe instead make a motion to the staff to meet with property owners and residents and have a real kind of holistic approach to the boundaries, because I think that will lead to a better result. I know that in the Art Deco district, it was done kind of piece by piece, so that may be what's needed here, but I think it should come from you all and from the people in the community. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Other public comment? Welcome. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Joyce Myers. I was the former planner for North Beach for 10 years, and currently I'm a property owner within the district. I just wanted to say, as the planner for the district, we felt strongly that the economic benefits of designation or preservation would be so much greater for the entire district, both districts, due to the sheer size of them, because it's heritage tourism that can bring people to visit the city. And I don't know, ask yourself, would you make the journey to Charleston or Savannah or something if it was just a tiny little district? It's the entire area that makes such an impact here, I think. Although I think Debbie has accurately identified the areas with the greatest concentration, if we limit it to those areas, we won't get the full economic benefit that it could otherwise be obtained. So thank you for considering this.
Thank you. Thank you for your work.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning.
And members of the board. It's very nice to see you all today. William Carey, 5161 Collins Avenue in the Morris Lapidus Mid-20th Century Historic District. First of all, I want to thank Joyce Myers, who is really so modest, because Joyce was the real workhorse that really brought about the designation of these two National Register historic districts in North Beach. And this is a process that began many, many years ago. Actually, the second historic district that I designated when I was here, that I brought forward for designation, was the Harding Townsite South Altus Historic District. And that was only preceded by the Ocean Beach Historic District none of the buildings of which would exist today
Right.
if the board had not moved forward and the city commission and the planning board had not moved forward and designated that district. Frank Del Vecchio knows that perhaps better than anyone, and he moved in after the district had been designated. And we can see where everybody said, if you designate the Ocean Beach Historic District, the area south of 6th Street is never going to develop. Now it's the highest priced real estate in the entire city. So much for the naysayers. As we all know, timing is everything in historic preservation. That's why we hit the Ocean Beach Historic District first, the Harding Townside Historic District second, and that's why we strategically planned the timing of the Collins Waterfront Historic District, which was not even being looked at that time. Technology, we did a lot of it almost in a clandestine manner with a lot of volunteers, the Miami Design Preservation League going out and surveying the buildings on their own time, and that became the base for our work to be able to proceed. Joyce's comments about cultural tourism are so terribly important. This process began for looking at National Register designation, oh gosh, what, more than 10 years ago, Joyce, when we knew that we did not have the political support yet to proceed with further local historic district designation in North Beach. As a matter of fact, we had to cut the North Beach Historic District in half in order to get all the hotels protected on the east side of Collins Avenue, being the Carillon and all the great hotels that we have there today. And I also think that Debbie and her staff have done a terrific job in identifying kind of the hardcore areas of both the Normandy Islands Historic District and the North Shore Historic Districts. And I think it's important to bear in mind that it took more than 12 years, a dozen years, just to fill in the boundaries of the National Register Historic District with local historic districts. That's how long it took the city to catch up. We don't have 12 years to catch up in North Beach. North Beach has been waiting to explode now for many years, and it is going to happen now. I mean, the market is now absolutely right for it. I think the boundaries that staff has recommended make a great deal of sense. I think it is very important for the board to go forward and take some action at this meeting beyond a continuance. I would suggest at minimum that you proceed with the boundaries, the reduced boundaries that are recommended by staff, but also make a motion to include as a part of the designation report and the presentation to the Historic Preservation Board, the creation adoption of adjoining land use regulations like we did with the Collins Waterfront Historic District and we did with the North Beach District, so that you have companion ordinances that go along with addressing any of the serious concerns that both the development community and the residents have relative to making this more palatable to the planning board and to the city commission. It took probably almost 5 years to get the North Shore Historic District, Resort Historic District designated. It took about 2 years for the Collins Waterfront Historic District. But we all know the extraordinary difference that they have made. Now, when we took we began the process for the National Register by bringing down the chief staff person from the Florida Historic Preservation Board from Tallahassee. Joyce and I, toured her through both of those districts, and this was, more than 10 years ago, Barbara Maddock, and she was so enthusiastic and said, "You really need to move forward on this. You need to be the trendsetter. You need to set the cutting edge on this." When Joyce and I went to the National Register Review Board in Tallahassee to present these two historic districts 6 years ago now, 6 years ago I believe it was, yes, the districts were unanimously approved by the National Register Review Board, which is made up, as you know, of representatives from all over the state of Florida. I mean, the ones who are the most conservative that normally only recommend designation of buildings that were built in the 18 and 1900s. So it was 100% unanimously endorsed by all of them. It took a great deal of work. Alan Schulman did a fabulous job in preparing the designation reports. It's a work of art in itself. Truly, both of those areas should be fully designated, and they will be over time. But I think you do have to consider the politics of the moment. There's a lot of change proposed for North Beach. You may have to take it more incrementally, so I think that's the greatest decision that you have to make today. But I do urge you to move forward. I appreciate the comments of the mayor's Blue Ribbon panel, because obviously they will hold a lot of sway with the city commission, but...
William, just a comment or question, actually. I think, again, we're looking at a continuation to give the staff another 120 days, to give the community another 120 days to really understand and embrace and consider this. You're suggesting that...
My concern is this. The board has already changed substantially since I left you before my surgery in December of last year.
I hear you.
By January, you're going to have a substantially an entirely new board, and that board is going to say, well, we really don't understand the whole process and what you're doing here and what's important.
Right.
So I think it's very important to do this while you have members that know and understand the game, know the politicians, know the members of the planning board. I think now is the time to move. I've given many presentations on the success of historic designation in Miami Beach over my 20 years here, and I've always hit that critical point. Timing is absolutely everything in historic preservation, because once the buildings come down, Tom knows, I know, everybody knows how many buildings we've already lost in these historic districts, including one building that destroyed a whole beautiful Pueblo compound of buildings, one entire block long on Harding Avenue already, that's now being replaced with a four-story building. So I think timing is essential. And thank you, and I admire you all for the work that you do.
You wanted...
Yeah, to this topic, I don't know if this is just hearsay, but what frightens me a little bit is there seems to be a major aggregation of contiguous lots in North Beach now.
That is what we found in the planning board. Developers were buying lots with 2 and 3 properties along the waterfront.
Yes. So that kind of tells me where things is going. So 120 days, how many more properties can be? And is there a way that we could publicize that? I mean, can we?
Pardon?
How do we find out the contiguous sales that are going on? Do we have to go on the Dade County property search? Because it's too...
No, well, I mean, the most important thing is once you initiate once you direct staff to prepare the designation report, zoning in progress goes into effect.
Right.
So therefore, any applications that would normally go to the design review board come to the historic preservation board for review and approval, just as if the district was already designated.
Okay.
So that's a safeguard that the city commission so wisely put in place 15 or 18 years ago, and you should really take full advantage of that, because we're losing buildings there.
Okay.
And we're in that state right now, correct?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
We've already lost several.
Yes.
Thank you, William, and it's so good to see you.
Thank you very much.
Likewise, thank you.
Other public comment? Welcome back.
Good morning. So first, I'll defend the Blue Ribbon panel, who spends countless time meeting with staff, different department heads, discussing a lot of different issues and dedicating a lot of time. I would agree that they don't have the preservation background that you have, but I will assure you that there is open discussion with the community. That's why staff is present. That's why there's a lot of discussion. And I will continue to encourage discussion, whether it's pro or against it, because that's what my community needs. So as far as the local designation, first, thank you. It's the first time this community has had this conversation in a long time. So you triggered a conversation that needed to be had. And I'll tell you the same thing I told in the public meetings. It's not an easy process. So whoever was expecting that there wouldn't be naysayers, that there wouldn't be concern, you're misguided. So of course, there's a lot of concern. But as I've said, MIMO is our identity. It is the character of our community. And there's a lot of different moving pieces towards this local designation. But the local designation won't only be the solution. Other variables have to play. So yes, I'm in favor of continuing to engage the community, as we've done, talk to property owners who today are not buying buildings to knock them down, but as all of you that live in North Beach have seen, they're buying buildings and putting new windows and doors, and they're improving the housing stock that we have that will have a positive impact on our tourism, on our local economy, and everything else that goes with it. The Liebermans today are single-handedly changing the concept of Harding, and that overlay district being proposed as the boundaries for Harding is a perfect start. The private market's doing that today on its own. You didn't have to force them to do it. They saw it, and they're improving the buildings. And what's motivating them to do that is the use. That hotel use is really beneficial, so I'm glad to see staff proposing that and taking those steps. I will say the following. When we did the National Registry District, we only looked at the eastern end of Normandy Isle. And on 2 meetings now, both of you have brought up the International Inn. Well, the International Inn is not it. Kalai has a great makeup of buildings. And yes, I would encourage you to make a motion to extend the National Registry District for Normandy Isle to include the northwestern corner that has a great makeup of buildings. It doesn't just need to be the International Inn. So I will continue my community process and continue to try to engage property owners and advocates for the district, but ultimately it's a lot of variables that are going to make this successful. And no, contrary, I'm not trying not to be South Beach, but North Beach isn't South Beach. And it is something that we need to keep in mind as we're going through this process. And preservation today isn't what it used to be before. There are a lot of challenges today with preserving a building and staying within the 50% rule and the change in the floodplain, which is something that I'm investigating and trying to learn how nationally we're dealing with sea rise and also how to preserve these buildings on the waterfront. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Other public comment? Welcome.
Frank Delvecchio, 301 Ocean Drive. I hadn't intended to say anything, but William Carey did bring up my name and South Point. I had just arrived in 1996 when the Ocean Beach Historic District was being designated. For the benefit of people who are listening or watching, I think South Point designation of the Ocean Beach Historic District designation is not to be feared. It does not freeze a community in time. The South Point experience, which I hope can be replicated in North Beach, benefited not only properties within the district, but had a profound beneficial impact on the areas surrounding the district. You've seen, and you'll see today, some properties that will come before you for some applications that will come before you that are within the historic district and are seeking approvals on compatibility, and that is what we've seen. So it results in a very vital, dynamic process which is not to be feared by developers or property owners. And I think, as others have testified, it will result in a combination of economic potential and profit on the part of property owners. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other public comment? If there is no other public comment, we'll close the public meeting and open it up to the board. John?
Hi. I just wanted to kind of maybe get a little clarification from you, Debbie, on how your proposed continuance changes the overall schedule as compared to where we left it last time in terms of what our natural schedule would have been had we not had that.
In my opinion, the requested continuance delays not the entire process, but it would delay, as Mr. Carey said, the zoning in progress. Zoning in progress does not come into effect until you direct us to prepare the formal designation report. We have been continuing and will be continuing to work on the anticipation of a formal designation. The difference is when zoning in progress takes effect. If you move forward today, it would take effect after your approval. So you have the right to move forward today or to let us to continue working and come back. There has been some requests from the community that they want more specific information prior to this moving forward to the next step. Typically, with the preliminary evaluations, they are very preliminary, that we don't have a full survey of every single building. There has been a desire from the public to get more specific information on each individual building, to have more of an idea what these zoning overlay regulations will be prior to you taking action. But you're not designating anything, even if you move forward today. The process will continue regardless.
Okay.
So just to follow up, the research would continue, the research that you would plan to do would happen in any event. It's just if a building were to come up, have a question, it would come before this board as opposed to going before the design review.
Correct.
And any evaluation would be under the current circumstances.
Correct.
Okay.
I would urge us to do the strongest thing we could possibly do today. I agree with those who have said that time is passing. There are too many people with too many agendas which are contrary to preservation. I think we need to take a stand, and we need to do it now. And I would challenge anyone who thinks that people on this board do not spend an awful lot of time and research and communication with the public, which is what we are supposed to do, not with a few people on certain select committees. Thank you.
Thank you. Wynn?
Well, I was going to amend
Well,
the
let's
motion,
keep,
but
keep
I was
going
going
with
to, that's
comments
why.
first. Okay. Jane?
I think it's clear that we need to do, the right thing and move it ahead as soon as possible. I don't think it's going to harm anyone to put zoning in progress right now. And the thing that's important to remember is our historic districts are, what do they say? The whole is greater than the sum of their parts. So the Art Deco district is wonderful because of the accumulation of all the buildings, not just a few buildings here and there. And it's the same thing we need to, if we're going to protect North Beach, we need the whole package. We need to work with the whole package. So if somebody does get a little crazy and wants to come and tear a few major things down, that could blow a block in a historic district. So why don't we just put on the brakes a little bit, educate some more.
I'd like to, just take a step back and kind of go down the row and ask a couple of questions so we know where we're at. Are you in favor of moving forward today or adding 120 days, number one? Number two, are you in favor of the original full districts as presented, or what staff is suggesting is the more fine-tuned version of today? And thirdly, are you up for reappointment at the end of this year or not? No, I mean, they're legitimate questions so that we know who's going to be here if there is another 3-4 months.
To the first question, I think we should move forward today. And the second question, I think, I'm not quite sure. I mean, I understand that these are sensitive. I'm looking at the purple area right now on the map, and I know a building that was just torn down this week between numbers 9 and 8 there. So, I mean, I can't say those aren't extremely important and sensitive areas to address immediately. I also can't say that they're the only areas that should be addressed. And I think unless I'm asked otherwise off the board, I think I'm not up for a reappointment yet.
Okay. Joe?
December is my last meeting. Goodbye to all of you then.
Are you termed out?
Yes,
So
I
you're
am termed out.
6 years.
I'm
Okay.
turned out, and I don't have to worry about political repercussions from any of the commissioners or the mayor because of how I think or feel. And I'm very happy.
I can see that in your comments
Yes,
today.
did you notice that? Did you notice that? It's
you.
very freeing, and
Okay.
yes, I think we need to go ahead the strongest possible approach to this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Wynn?
I am not termed out for a number of years. So I will be here.
Are you up for reappointment in December or no?
No.
Okay.
There's a couple things. One is I do think we should move forward with the current boundary as has been discussed. I think we also should, to get the zoning in progress and setting up those guidelines. Not only that, not only for us to be able to see what's coming forward, but also for the public to know that something's coming forward. So that when they're purchasing properties or looking towards making motions of renovation, et cetera, that these will be things they need to consider. The second thing is, I do think that we should continue evaluating what those true boundaries will be, and engaging the public with getting their information and input on what those boundaries could or should be. The third thing is, I do think that in conjunction, staff should also be working towards, we've already learned the lessons, there's a lot of, I'm not saying South Beach is identical to Normandy Isle or North Beach, et cetera, but I think there's a lot of lessons that we've already learned. So while their identity is similar, it is different, but we can still learn from the exact same lessons we've already done. So I think guidelines, design guidelines, zoning guidelines, more information for those people that are looking to be a part of that community or are in the community would be beneficial. So those are the three things that I'm...
Thank you. Jane?
I also think we should move ahead today with the boundaries as defined and considering the addition of the International Inn and other things that have been mentioned. I don't know if we need to be do we need to be exact today if we move ahead?
That would have to be a separate motion and a separate
Then, so as not to
application.
delay things, I think we should move ahead with this.
With this, you're saying with what staff is
With the
presenting
boundaries.
today, or with the original boundaries we've been looking at?
What staff has introduced today.
Okay, and you were looking at the original boundaries, correct, Wynn, or are you looking at
The new.
staff's recommendations today?
I would say what staff is recommending currently.
Just want to
Yeah,
get a
yep.
straw vote here.
I also believe we need to move ahead with a lot of outreach and education, and I am up for reappointment at the end of the year. I have another 2 years I could serve, and as far as I know, Dade Heritage Trust has asked me to stay.
Okay.
I agree with everything everybody has already said. I think it's imperative that we move ahead today, certainly with staff recommendations and with the direction to staff to perhaps evaluate the other areas of Normandy Isle and North Shore of, the buildings which are worthy of, there are clearly buildings in the northwest corner of Normandy Isle that are worthy of a contributing factor and designation. So I think that we ought to have perhaps a second motion that addresses that issue. But I'm clearly in favor of us moving ahead today with staff recommendations.
Are you up for reappointment?
I'm not up for reappointment, and I'm termed out at the end of the next year.
I agree. I think we should move forward. Following staff recommendation, I think it is, as Mr. Carey said it is time, and when time is ripe, it's time to do it. As far as reappointment, yes, I'm up for reappointment on December 31st.
Okay.
This year.
This year. And you potentially could serve another year, another 2?
Another 2 years.
Years. Okay. I strongly feel that we should move forward today and adopt staff's recommendations of these districts. Of course, and I'm sure staff would probably agree that these are not the only important areas that we need to look at, but I think it's a good starting point to move forward. And I believe that if it is the will of the Commission and of Miami Design Preservation League, I have potentially 1 more year, but it's very possible that I will not be here after December. So, having said that, go ahead.
I just wanted to say one other thing. I was wondering if we can include in the motion a kind of commission education strategy as well, so we are able to, because we talk about the community, but actually the community that we really need to address is the commission themselves, and maybe we can think about a way to do that.
Sure. I can tell you that a couple of them have attended the meetings themselves. They have been very vocal in their own beliefs. I can tell you that I personally have spoken to almost everyone one-on-one. But by all means, there can never be enough education.
No, I think more of that is good. I mean, maybe there's a way to even, I don't know whether we're allowed to speak with them more than a one-on-one or whatever, but some kind of strategy, I think, to help everybody who's involved to understand what the issues are, how we can make it better.
I would suggest that one-on-one, at least for me, is the best way to communicate with anybody, not commissioners and mayors, not necessarily different in that respect. I think one-on-one is certainly the most effective for both sides of the conversation. But again, I just want to point out, for whatever it's worth, to William's point, there's going to be at least 3 of us that may or may not be here after January or after December. So that, for whatever that's worth, that will change the dynamics of this board rather significantly. So, go ahead.
Okay, so can I make I'm going to make a motion.
Absolutely.
To move forward with the zone, or the limits, that the boundaries that staff has recommended and presented here, putting into effect the zoning.
So you would be directing staff to prepare a formal
To
designation
prepare,
report
yes.
for the boundaries proposed on the maps.
Correct. So I'd be, right, yes, I'd be doing directing staff to do a formal designation on the boundaries presented. In addition, to continue looking at, so do we need to make that a separate and then do?
I don't think you need to make a motion for the companion ordinance or guidelines, whatever. We are going to continue working on that. I'm working closely with the planning director on outreach and looking at different tools.
Okay, so in addition to continue the evaluation of boundaries in and around these areas and what to include, to involve the public as you have been doing, and to also look at preparing clear guidelines as companion documents with these boundaries.
I had a question. Is this, what happens in this case to the rest of the National Register district? Is that included in the zoning in progress or not, in your view? I wasn't understanding that.
That's a question for Gary.
Only the boundaries
Right,
that are
only
in
the
the
areas that
local
we're-
district would be included.
So the boundaries that staff is recommending?
The green, purple, and blue boundaries only, or would the existing National Historic District boundaries?
What's staff recommendation?
I think it's just the boundaries that we're suggesting, or that we're asking you to continue with today, which is the colored
Yeah.
areas.
Okay.
If we want those other areas, then it's another, again, that's why we're making the clarification. Originally, this board was looking at mimicking, if you will, the National Historic Districts.
Exactly.
If we were to move forward with that today, then all those properties would fall under that.
Herb, I have a question for Debbie.
Gray is included, right?
The staff recommended boundaries
Yes.
do not exactly replicate the National Historic
Yes.
District.
No, the staff recommended boundaries have been refined to the colored areas on those maps. So it is a reduction in area from the National Register.
And what's the rationale behind that?
We, like I said before, we have performed a field survey of the entire district boundaries for both districts. We believe that the areas we've identified on the maps contain the highest concentration of the most significant architecture.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I must have missed that.
Is there a second to Wynn's motion?
Second.
Okay, I have a question sort of related. What's October's agenda looking like?
We have an extremely lengthy agenda. There's over 30 applications on the October agenda.
Okay.
Many of them are the antennas, the cellular antennas.
The reason why I'm asking is I'm trying to, and unfortunately we should have considered that for this agenda, trying to think how we could have, not necessarily an open debate or discussion, but I think it would be very, very beneficial, Debbie, to have you go on record in a public forum, as is this meeting, with TV and everything else, because I know maybe I'm the only one, but I sit at 3 o'clock in the morning and watch these meetings, and that's how I become informed on meetings I can't get to. I think it would be wonderful for you to be able to do a presentation, a 15, 20-minute presentation. Again, not a back-and-forth debate, not necessarily even a public forum as you do with the community meetings, but just the facts as they relate to historic designation.
We're happy to do that. We can put a discussion item on, so it wouldn't be no action would be taken by the board.
Nothing, right.
We could do that for October or November.
I'm just looking at an
whatever.
informational presentation by staff as to what the facts are of a designation. what is involved. Yeah, basically the presentation that you've been doing to the community.
And we would be more than happy to do that. It's your direction. We can do that in October or November, whatever you prefer.
Okay. Okay. I think we could consider that towards the end of the agenda to include that or not. John?
I just wanted to ask one more, sorry for asking so many clarification
This
questions.
is important.
Because, okay, so say we move forward with these, the blue, the purple, the green, and the gray, oh, I guess the green.
The gray's
areas.
already-
Gray's already, yeah, I can't really, yeah, I realize it's Altamar, okay. But what happens to the rest of when do the rest of the National Historic District?
Stays as it is today.
Stay as they are today.
Until we come back.
Until unprotected,
we come back as a board and once again direct staff to consider other areas that may or may not be within that historic.
So is there, we have an opportunity here to move forward as we had started to move forward, which is to say, let's have the entire district that we had talked about
This, just to
looking
give a
forward. Is there a reason
comparison-
not to do that?
To give a historic comparison, what is commonly known as the Art Deco District, the Miami Beach Architectural Historic District, is, I can't even remember, how many individual districts? 6, 7 individual districts? 5, okay. Again, it very much followed what I hope we're starting to do today, which is you start with the bigger footprint of the national district, which is a huge honor. And let's, we haven't really talked enough about the national district. It is extremely, the standards are very high to even become a national historic district. And I think that we gloss over that because it doesn't have local teeth, if you will, of protecting the buildings. But, like anything else, sometimes you're far more popular outside of your own hometown. And I think that our historic districts, we don't even begin to value what Miami Beach Historic Preservation is on a national and an international level. And the national historic districts, I think, are the ultimate. Again, as important as local designation is, to me, a national designation carries far more weight in the sense that, you don't have the local emotion involved. It's really people on a much higher level, if you will, looking at the treasures in your district and in your city. So I don't think that we value that enough.
Going by that rationale, then we should vote to designate the entire National Register District if...
David, is your mic on?
Stay on your mic, yeah.
If we were to follow your reasoning. So it's an interesting discussion, isn't it?
It is an interesting discussion, and again, I think that if you're asking my opinion, I believe that in a perfect world, I would love the whole national district to move forward today, but I do understand, and I've been down this road for almost, I believe, every one of the 12 districts in one form or another. I've been up here and been part of it, or as director of Miami Design Preservation League. So I do know a thing or two about our citywide historic preservation and what the community wants. And I've sat through, I can't even tell you how many meetings and done my homework. And I believe this is the best way to go forward, is with what the staff is recommending today.
And that's what we have on the motion that I made.
Okay.
And the motion's been seconded.
If there's a motion that's been seconded, if there's no further discussion, Debbie, would
I
you
still have
please
something.
clarify?
I still have a question.
Yes.
A little more
course.
discussion.
Sure.
So have we had any confirmation from commissioners that this is that this would be, no. So this is a compromise that we're making on our own, that we're assuming will appease the monster or whatever it is. And I'm asking whether this is...
This is, in staff's professional opinion,
Yes.
these are the areas that contain the highest concentration of the significant architecture. We believe that these areas should be part of a local historic district.
And John, we are often, I would almost say every single meeting, challenged with this exact same dilemma, are we up here to do what is correct and right for our city, or are we up here to appease other boards and commission or individuals?
Right.
That only you can answer, or any of us can answer.
Right, I just see, right, no, this is a new proposition that we hadn't discussed in the past, and we hadn't directed staff to do this, so I was asking where the direction came from.
Well, They've reviewed.
We started with the whole thing.
Correct. And this
then
is
you did the
still
survey.
relatively preliminary, but we have very recently just completed our field survey and have started looking at the different areas.
Right.
This is a long process.
So you feel these are the strongest pockets, if you will, of areas that would have the least path of resistance?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, there's always going to be
Well,
resistance likely,
right.
but staff feels very strongly about the areas that we're
Certainly have the
recommending.
information to back it up.
Correct.
Correct? There we go.
Let us vote.
Okay, so if there's no further discussion, Debbie, would you please repeat the motion?
Yes, the motion is to direct staff to prepare a formal historic designation report for the staff recommended boundaries for the North Shore Historic District, and then we'll have a separate motion for staff to prepare a formal designation report for the proposed Normandy Isles district as the boundaries were recommended by staff.
Thank you, and I will.
So if we could have two motions, they're two different file numbers.
I just want to add one more thing. Long after I'm no longer sitting here, or any of us up here, or the mayor, or the commissioners, the city continues, and the community continues. And there's many people that were involved and instrumental in original historic designations in the city. They're long gone, but the benefits live on. So I think that, again, we need to all, elected officials and appointed ones, we really need to look at the bigger picture and not be selfish or self-centered, and look at what's best for the city.
We have to remember demolition is forever.
Okay? So the first motion, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion passes.
So that was for, just to clarify, that was for for Normandy Isles, or that was for North Shore? That was for North
That
Shore?
was for North Shore.
So that would be HPB file
File
7432.
Correct.
And
So-
then we would need a separate motion for 7433.
So I make a motion that we also move forward with the Normandy Isles formal designation as far as the limits that staff, looking at the boundaries that staff has recommended, and that we piggyback on that, continue to evaluate the future limits, continued engagement with the public, and continue to look at bringing on design guidelines, zoning guidelines, information that individuals can use.
Okay, is there a second to Wynn's motion?
Second.
been
I'd say
moved.
that,
It's been seconded.
Winston Churchill said that the further one looks into the past, the more he sees into the future.
Exactly.
Well said, Winston.
It was Winston, not me.
I said Winston. I said, well said, Winston.
Oh,
Nice work, David.
If is there any discussion on this motion? If there is no discussion, I call the question. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much to staff and for the incredible work you've already done and the incredible work that I know you will continue to do on these two applications. And thank you very much for everybody that came out on this issue. Moving forward.
If I could just clarify, the planning department will, at this point, we have zoning in progress in those district proposed boundaries. We will now prepare a letter to the commission to notify the commission of your action. They, per the city code, have 60 days where they can call the item on one of the commission agendas for discussion. So I would urge all of you to keep posted on whether or not that will be discussed at a city commission meeting. If they do not request to discuss it at one of the commission meetings within that 60-day window, the process continues. Staff has, according to the code, up to 1 year to present you with the formal designation report. And again, we will not be taking a year.
And Mr. Held, will you please clarify yet again for the benefit of this board and the public what the policy would be if anyone sitting on this board chooses to go and speak in front of the commission on these two issues?
Oh, I think you're allowed to.
Okay.
I don't have any issue with that.
Okay. So
Just
several of us can go to the commission meeting, speak individually. and
Yeah, you
that's
should
not
go
a problem.
separately.
But obviously, we're not going to carpool, we're not going to sit together necessarily, but we can be in this room at the same time in a city commission meeting and go to the podium individually and speak as.
Can we speak as individuals, or do we speak as members of the HP board?
Either.
Okay.
Okay. Not on behalf of the board, but as a board member, yes, of course.
Not that staff doesn't have enough to do, but sometimes I don't stay up on what's coming up on the commission. If you do see that it's coming up, can an email be?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
That would be wonderful. If you could email all of us when you know that it will be on the agenda, that would be great.